Hello, my name is Niall Stewart, and I'm the head of commercial lending for Carver Federal Savings Bank. And welcome to Harlem Week 2020, the virtual edition. Yes, Harlem Week is continuing this year. We are continuing to operate in the tradition that we have for several decades, although in a virtual manner. Carver Bank is proud to be a sponsor of Harlem Week this year. We're proud to participate in virtual booths that will be operating, and we'll be doing some Zoom meetings and meeting with small businesses virtually throughout Harlem Week, as well as providing access to information. Carver Federal Savings Bank was chartered in 1948 by a group of very brave folks who were small business owners and clergy who realized that in the communities that we lived in, which are Harlem, Southeast Jamaica, Queens, Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, places like that, did not have access to traditional banking services, and more importantly, didn't have access to capital by way of home loans or small business loans. So these very brave people got together, federally chartered institution, and opened our doors in 1948. Carver Bank does not exist without the village of Harlem. When we opened our branch there, people were lined up around the block to deposit their funds in the bank that was their own. So as Harlem goes, so does Carver Federal Savings Bank. Additionally, in 1994, when the bank went public, Harlem was there to support the institution by way of buying stock so people could own a piece of the bank that was actually theirs as well. So there is a long-standing partnership between Harlem and Carver Federal Savings Bank, and we'd like to thank the folks at Harlem Week and the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce for including us and being part of the virtual edition of Harlem Week 2020. One of the things that's going to be critical for this year is the viability of small businesses in the community of Harlem. Some studies have said that as many as 60% of the small businesses may not reopen post-pandemic, and if they do, we reopen at a limited capacity, which may not provide them with profitability for some period of time. So there's going to be a brand new business model that's going to exist for a lot of businesses, and they need to be prepared, and they need to have Carver there and other institutions to provide technical support as well as access to capital to get them through this tough period. One of the things that Carver did through the pandemic was participate significantly in the Paycheck Protection Program. In April, the Treasury Department put up several $100 billion to provide small businesses with access to a forgivable loan that would allow them to keep their employees on the payroll through the period of the pandemic, which at that time they anticipated to be about a month. We are several months into this now, and many of us realize that it has been a challenging time for these small businesses, as well as individuals who are employed at other institutions. The viability of small businesses in Harlem is crucial to the success of Harlem. These small businesses provide extremely valuable services. They provide goods to the community. They provide jobs to the community. And they circulate the dollars within the community to help Harlem grow as well as its residents. And Carver is committed to supporting this mission. So through the Paycheck Protection Program, Carver was able to deploy more than $35 million in forgivable loans to small businesses, nonprofits, sole proprietors, and houses of worship throughout New York City as well. And a significant amount of that $35 million went to businesses in Harlem. And we'd like to thank the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce, Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone, and other organizations that steered businesses our way to help us provide support to them. We are now coming out of the Paycheck Protection Program, and we'll be working with these small businesses to ensure that these loans are forgiven so that they can continue to operate without having the burden of additional debt over their heads. On the other side of the pandemic, we're going to be looking to support these small businesses through access to capital in the ways that we've done through the state's program, the Bridge to Success, which is a wonderful program put on Empire State Development. Carver is one of the primary lenders in that program. It provides financing to minority and women-owned businesses only who receive contracts from the city or the state to perform services or provide goods. We also participate in the MTA Small Business Development Program. We've been engaged in this program for over 10 years. We've done it with the School Construction Authority as well. And we provide mobilization financing to small businesses with a focus on minority and women-owned businesses so that they can increase the size of the jobs that they're doing with the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. This program has been extremely successful for the institution as well as for the MTA. We've helped dozens and dozens of businesses and deployed tens of millions of dollars into the program and have watched these businesses grow from being a mom and pop shop or 1 or 2 person operation to having upwards of 60, 70 employees for several of these businesses. And even many of them have outgrown Carver, which is a true success story. We want to continue with that tradition. We want to make funds available through access to capital post-pandemic to ensure that these businesses do reopen and continue to thrive and survive throughout the pandemic. One of the things that's going to be critical is that these businesses will have to operate under a new paradigm. Social distancing will continue for an extended period of time and will require that these businesses open up in a manner different than what they did pre-pandemic. Restaurants and hospitality businesses will be operating at limited capacity. In some cases, may not be able to be profitable based on the capacity that they're going to be operating under, and will need the expertise and access to capital that Carver Bank and other CDFIs, community development financial institutions, will be providing in the community. So it's important that you stay tuned to Harlem Week. We will be operating virtual booths. We will be having Zoom meetings. We will be having counseling sessions with small businesses. We will be providing financial literacy. Our president and CEO, Mr. Michael Pugh, will be participating in forums speaking on racial justice and other high-end financial issues. So please pay attention to Harlem Week 2020, the virtual edition. We'll be here with you throughout the entire week. And also follow through with the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce if you are a small business and would like to talk to Carver, or you can just walk into one of our branches. Again, Niall Stewart, Head of Commercial Lending at Carver Bank. I want to thank you for participating in Harlem Week 2020. It's going to be epic, historic, and we look forward to talking to all of you. Thank you. Have a great day.
And welcome everybody to Project Impact. It is a collaboration between T10 Collective and the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce. And we're happy to discuss today the topic of search marketing, analytics, and how we can transform insights into action. So excited for you all to be here so we can hopefully shed some information and also help support and empower your different businesses and ventures. So with that said, I'd like to kick it off and go to the next slide. Perfect. So who we are, we're Talented 10th Collective. And to give you a little background about us, myself, Donald Weber, and I have 2 co-founders, Matthew Winter and Kevin, who are all on this webinar with us. So each of us have over a decade's worth of experience in various industries. Myself personally, I have a background in management consulting, strategy, and finance. And then my colleagues have experiences in other areas like marketing and advertising, private equity, and investment banking. And with all of this corporate experience, we wanted to find and explore ways into which we can pour that experience back into our communities. And we've been doing that. We were founded about 3 years ago. And since then, we've been doing various activities and ventures to kind of pour those experiences back into our communities. So one is we curate and facilitate workshops with local community centers and elementary schools, public schools, and charter schools in the city. And we also provide consulting services to small businesses, whether that's helping with holiday campaigns, launching brands, amplifying brands, and looking at your operations. We do kind of all those things. And then also we're focused now on providing and creating original thought-provoking content that tells our story. Because it's something as we've grown, we've found more of a passion, but also an importance in. And then last, we look to launch innovative ventures in our community as well. So looking at ventures that don't only provide enterprise, but grassroots level impact in our communities. So that's kind of what we're focused on. And one of these concepts is kind of what we're discussing today. So from that, I'll transition to the next slide. Okay, so just as a quick series overview, we're now in our 3rd installment. And to give you maybe a little bit of background, once the pandemic hit, myself and my 2 co-founders were really trying to explore what ways we can give background and information to our community. How can we best provide support? And we figured we would do so by connecting with the grassroots organizations that has direct connections to our community. And we had already developed a partnership with Harlem Chamber of Commerce, and we are a member. We approached them and brainstormed for different ideas, and one of which we fell on was the series Project Impact. And we're really focused on was how can we support our local businesses to make sure that they can survive, sustain, and also grow during these pandemic times. So we started out with really focusing on what we can do today. How can we address the most immediate needs? And that really was a focus on providing financial stability. So our first part one and launch session was really focused on how to navigate and also tap into a lot of the federal programs that have been rolled out and provide small businesses with opportunities to collect funding. And then we transitioned to our second installment, which really was now what can we do tomorrow? And in there, we focused really on adapting to a digital world. So we talked about the importance and the use of social media and how you can use various tactics to amplify your brand, build a digital community, and hopefully gain more awareness. And now we're bringing it to our third installment where we're focusing on the future. So we're looking for ways in which we can not only amplify your brand, but how can you take that idea you have that you maybe have been thinking about for some time? How do you take your company that's already underway and how can you position it successfully for the future? How can you optimize for success? So today we're going to be talking about search marketing in specifically, and then how you can use different sets of data and analytics to inform and transform that into action that could hopefully grow your business and help it build sustainably into the future years. So that's really kind of where we're going to be focusing today. Okay, and then my co-founder and colleague here, Matthew, is going to take you through the agenda.
Thank you, Donnie. So just a quick rundown of what the agenda is going to look like for today. So, as you saw on the flyer, we're going to start with search marketing, which is probably something that you probably aren't staying up at night thinking about. And it also is something that you probably don't know a lot about. And that's okay, because the whole purpose of this presentation is for you to walk away feeling a lot more confident about not only your knowledge of search marketing, but also how you can use it as a tool for your business moving forward. From there, we're going to talk a lot about Google Analytics. It's probably one of those things that sounds very complicated and sophisticated, but believe me, it is something that as we go through it, you'll not only understand how easy it is, but also how powerful it is as a tool for you to be able to turn any type of data point that you're gathering from your business into an action item. To start off, let's talk about SEO. So really quickly, who knows what SEO stands for? I know we have so many acronyms out there, but this is one of them that you will definitely know the answer to the next time you're asked. SEO stands for search engine optimization. And really what search engine optimization is about is kind of like what the word is saying. So search engines, the biggest of course being Google, though it's not the only search engine out there. It's basically figuring out ways to optimize for success within the search results page. And so what is search? I'm sure you're asking. Search is actually one of those key things that we do every single day, and we may not even be thinking about it. I'm sure you may, if you're anything like me, you ask Google every question. We have Amazon Alexas now, where the whole point of them is to be able to send search queries verbally to an Amazon Alexa who is going to do the scrubbing for you. In 2020, we've obviously gotten a lot lazier, and so we don't actually want to type things out anymore. But hopefully that kind of demonstrates the fact that search is literally a part of our everyday life because we're naturally curious beings. We want to know things. We want to know how to get somewhere. We want to know how much something costs. We want to know just more information in general. And so broadly speaking, what makes search so powerful is the fact that you're really answering the questions, areas of just general inquiry. And so search can be broken down into three main categories. There's your informational search, which kind of represents the broadest amount of searches. So if you think about it, it's things that you may just instantly want to know. And be curious to know how you guys search because the way that you search, sometimes people may put a full question like, how do you clean an oven? Some people may type in cleaning ovens. And believe it or not, based off of the words that you choose to actually make that search is going to dictate what the results are going to come back as. And so really what search engine optimization is all about is being able to make sure that based off the words that are used and all of the information available via that search query is going to be the one that's going to let you know what those results are going to be back. So that's informational search, which should make sense. But then there's transactional searches. And believe it or not, we do a lot more transactional searches than we realize. Transactional searches are for very specific things. So if say you're in the market for a stove, using that same oven example, you may want to know what the best stoves are out there. And so you may just type into Google or Bing or any of the other searches, but for today's purposes, we'll just focus on Google. So you may go into Google and just say, best stoves for under $1,000. And again, it doesn't always have to be in sentence form, but the more thought out and the more words that you put into your search, the more information naturally is going to come out. So that's transactional. Obviously, think of transactional as anything that really relates to a purchase or anything kind of numbers driven, because the results are then going to come back with, as you've probably seen, a results page that looks like 1,000 stoves that are under $1,000. And so hopefully you can kind of understand the difference between an informational search and then a transactional search. But then there's a navigational search, which is really where Google's kind of made its name. If you've been paying attention over the years, you've kind of noticed that Google has been really good about adapting their site to the search queries that we do. So naturally, with us wanting to know, how to get to a certain place, Google has their Google Maps functionality, which, believe it or not, uses Google search as its foundation. So you type in a location, and navigational search is going to send you to a certain place. So using that same stove or oven analogy, if you now want to just know where to buy a stove, Walmart more than likely is going to come to the top. Or believe it or not, Amazon is going to come to the top, because those companies are paying to have their results at the top of the page. And rightfully so. They have billions of dollars, and so they're going to pay to make sure that they're right at the top of the list. But the whole point of this presentation is to be able to help you figure out how can you compete within a search query to make sure that you're not dwarfed by the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world. Because it's not just all about the words that the person is searching, but it's also the intent. I may be typing in, how do you clean an oven? And then typing in the best stoves to then ultimately get to Matthews ovens. And all of those searches may not have gotten me there unless I was typing in Matthews ovens. But based off of how well I've optimized my site, that will determine how high or how low I end up in that search. 46% of Google searches are for a local business or service. 26% of all local searches actually lead to a purchase. So if you're a business owner who, say, has a restaurant that is in Harlem, and you have someone who's in Harlem searching for your business, you already have a glimpse into their mind. That means that they are of the mindset that they're either hungry, that they're either looking for a place to go locally, or that they ultimately could be looking for your business. And so that 26% kind of makes sense, because most people are not ultimately going to just go directly from that search to a purchase, but roughly 25%, 25, 26, a quarter of them are going to lead to a purchase. And so we as business owners, how do we then turn that 46% and that 26% into insights that we can be actionable about? Well, this is why search is so important, because out of all of the things that we've discussed over this series, so as Donald mentioned, we've touched on everything from social media. We talked about all of the financial resources available to you. These are all things that in some form or fashion may require you to spend some kind of money in order to be able to really be impactful. But the beauty of search is that it's primarily organic. And we're going to talk about the difference between the paid and organic in a second. But what makes search so important is that it is extremely cost effective, because it is really relying on someone else's thought process to be able to be impactful. And what you ultimately want to do as a business owner is just make sure that you are strategically placing yourself in the place to be found by them. It's essentially a game of lost and found. But Google, and you're going to hear us talk a lot about Google, but I do want to explain that part of that reason is because Google has built a full suite of products, which we will talk a lot about in the next slides, that are really out there to help business owners like us capitalize on the search intent, capitalize on really everything that a potential customer could want. And so search is very important, because platforms like Google make it very easy for someone who potentially could be your next customer to stumble on your business, even if they didn't know that you existed before. And then finally, search is actually the perfect complement to any other marketing campaign that you could be doing. So let's just say, hypothetically, you were recently picked up in, let's say, O Magazine. The perfect complement for that would then be your search campaign, because someone is going to either know your name or even a piece of something, and they're going to search for you. And based off where you pop up in there is going to be determined by the words they use, but again, also by how you've optimized your site to end up there. So I won't spend too much time on this, but I did just want to reinforce, if you didn't know before, why search is and should be something that should be a part of your mix moving forward. So let's take a step back. I know I mentioned SEO and I also mentioned SEM. What's the difference? So now we know that search engine optimization is really just about the optimizing of your website for organic traffic. But like that image in the middle shows, this is actually what a lot of our search queries look like. We've all seen them where in the middle, or excuse me, at the top, you'll see a bunch of results that come up. And there's that very small icon next to it that says ad. Google is essentially taking money to be able to have that prime positioning. So it's the first thing at the top of the list. And believe it or not, there's a reason why that's there. Because statistically speaking, the first position on that page tends to be where people will actually click. Think about your actual search queries. How many times have you gone to the 4th or 5th page in a search query to actually end up where you want? If you're not doing it, think about that in terms of your customer. Your customer is also more than likely not going to find you on that 4th or even 3rd page. And usually because when you're searching for something, you want a quick answer, right? So you're usually going to go for the first answer that pops up. And so that's where SEM versus SEO comes in. That blue section, which you'll see, represents the organic results. So that's Google's algorithm taking into account all of the words that are on your website and saying, okay, based off of what was searched, I think that this is what they were looking for, or at least the closest representation of what this person was looking for. But that's where SEM comes in. As I mentioned, you have companies like Walmart and Amazon, the big spenders out there who put tons, millions of dollars to really be able to have that prime positioning. But just because they're there, doesn't mean that you can't be there as well. And I would encourage you to actually think about a healthy mix of using what's free, which is obviously that organic optimization, and potentially even testing out paid. Really what paid comes down to is just making sure that for a certain period of time, the words that you put money against, you're only going to be paying when someone actually clicks on that word. And so we'll go into a little bit more about that. But just for argument's sake, when you hear me mention SEM or SEO, this is generally what I'm talking about and where those things are located. Not only is SEO free and SEM paid, but in terms of how quick you'll see results, SEO, because it's based on an algorithm and it's based off of keywords, it's going to take some time for you to see true results based off of any changes that you may be making. But also, the things that are the most important with an SEO campaign are going to be the page titles that you have on your page, the keywords that are listed within your site, and also, believe it or not, the page load speed. So if your website has a bunch of videos and graphics and things that make it very hard for the page to load quickly, those are things that are actually going to end up impacting your SEO, because not only is your user going to take a second to actually get the results that they want, but so is Google. Google's algorithm is not going to be able to pick up on that as quickly as we would hope. But one of the most impactful things about SEO is the fact that you're tapping into someone who is, again, actively searching for something. And so you want to be able to figure out what that perfect mix of page titles that are very specific to your business, but are also impactful in terms of the wording that you're using, to figure out what's the way to make sure that someone is going to be driven directly to my page as opposed to a page that doesn't have as strong of a word. And again, SEM is essentially all of those things that I just mentioned, but it's just adding a paid component. So another quick fact about search, as I mentioned, 33% of all search traffic results to the first search. But then that second one only gets 18% of traffic. So that shows that there's a huge drop off between that first result and that second result. And this is not the SEM section or the ad section. This is the actual organic results. So if you have a product that is a very competitive product, let's say, you have a jewelry brand similar to Lisette. There's tons of jewelry brands out there. So if I were to type in best jewelry brands, unless I have, or Lisette has on her page, that she is the best jewelry brand in any part of her copy, she's more than likely. So an exercise that takes a little bit of time but is worth it in the long run is thinking like your consumer would think. What are some of the things that if you were someone that wanted to be able to find your business would want to type in to Google to be able to get there? And those are the keywords that you ultimately want to make sure are part of your website so that Google's algorithm is able to pick up on them. All right, moving forward. Let's just have a quick conversation about what an actual search query looks like, what the features are, and how those can impact your searchability. So you see some examples here on the screen. When you type in a search result, you're going to get that first blue bar, which is the page title. So when I mentioned you want to make sure that you have impactful page titles, this is representative of what I mean. So for example, on Advertising Age's website, they have an article that says the top 15 ad campaigns of the 21st century. So if you're a jewelry brand again, you may have the top 10 looks of 2020. And someone who is searching any of those words is more likely to find you based off of that being in your title than it being anywhere else on your page. Then there's the meta descriptions. If you type in, think of it as that almost like a quick description of your brand. Not quite your elevator speech, but if you wanted in one sentence or less to explain what your business is digitally, think of the meta description as that. And your meta description could be your best friend because it could say everything that you want to say about your brand very quickly, but also think about it as each of those words within that meta description applies to a search as well. And so Tesla's is a great example because there's a bunch of keywords in here that they've made sure that they will always come up for. Some of them are going to be sustainable, which is something that's very important these days. Safety, they have safest, quickest. They have electric cars. So if anyone types in any of those words, Tesla is going to pop up solely based off of it being in their meta description. And that's not even factoring in anything that they're doing from a paid standpoint. And then there's the keywords that I'm mentioning. So Google has a great platform called Google Search Console. It can be your best friend. When I say that it is a lot simpler than you may be thinking, I would advise after this session, you to just Google Search Console, and you'll see that when you go in there, all you'll have to do is type in your website, claim your website, and it'll be able to show you all of the words that people are using currently to be able to get to your website, and it will also rank for you in order of the most effective to the least effective, which ones people are getting to you more. And these are essentially data points for you. As we mentioned in the beginning, Google is great at being able to provide you with these data points because then you can now turn those into insights. So for example, if I have my jewelry brand and I think that earrings may be what people usually type in to get to my business, but when I go into Google Search Console, I realize that people are actually coming to me for necklaces more often than not. That's a data point that can instantly turn into an action point because then I would hope that you then optimize your site to feature more words about necklaces than earrings. Not to say that you would get rid of one or the other, but you want to be able to take that data point and turn it into something that is now actionable for you. Here's a very important thing to keep in mind though. Make sure more than anything right now in these COVID times that your website is mobile friendly. And I know it may seem like a daunting task, or you may not even have thought about it because you're like, I have a website already. Whatever someone sees on their desktop is more than likely going to be what they see on their smartphone. And that's actually not the case. Think about how you use your mobile phone. More likely than not, you're going to be doing any type of search or any type of activity on your phone as opposed to a desktop. The majority of the queries that you're going to be the queries that you're going to be receiving are going to be coming from a mobile device. So it's very important for you to make sure that the experience that someone has on a desktop should be very thorough, but whatever your mobile experience is should be very hard-hitting. So using our website, for example, this is what our lovely website looks like on the left via desktop. But if you notice, it looks very different from what our mobile desktop our mobile website looks like, because it's much more text focused and it's very much so driven to drive you to a specific location on our site. And that's by design, because we've taken into account all of the tips that I just mentioned to you to make sure that someone who comes to our site via their mobile phone is going to be able to find what they're looking for, because we've already pre-planted many of the words that they're going to be looking for. So hopefully that makes sense. But as a next step coming out of this, I would definitely advise you to look into what your mobile site looks like. You can even do it right now. Just see what your site looks like and really take a step back and think, if I were a consumer, is this the easiest way for someone to be able to make it through my site? And then take it from there. A few other things that I mentioned in terms of keys for success. Again, there is Google Search Console, but I would argue the number one thing that you can do as a business owner right now in these COVID times is to make sure that you claim your Google My Business. And you probably have never heard of Google My Business. And that's by design. Google's My Business is really supposed to be your digital storefront on Google's platform. So if you typed in your business right now into Google, what pops up likely isn't going to be your Google My Business if you haven't claimed it. But if you have, someone typing in your specific name, the specific name of your business is going to get that before they get anything. And that's a powerful tool, because by you updating that, you're going to automatically make sure that someone can get every piece of information that they would need to know in order to make make a purchase or to be able to visit your business, all from that one location. And all of these things that we're mentioning to you on this call are all free. As small business owners, free is your best friend. And in this case, Google will be your best friend in terms of being able to figure out, how can I position my business as positively and as strategically as possible via the suite of products that Google has. So again, make sure you go claim and update your Google My Business. It's literally Google My Business. You can Google that as well. And also Google Search Console. And finally, make sure that you have a strong mobile site. And so, quick recap, because I know I flew through a lot of things. Everything that I mentioned there will all ultimately help you optimize to be able to boost your organic ranking. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to be able to make sure that outside of Instagram, outside of Facebook, outside of any of these social platforms, if someone literally wanted to Google the name of my business, or at least my industry or a product of mine, I want to be able to make sure that they're organically able to get there without me ever having to spend $1. And then based off of how your site pops up within a Google query, you may decide that, okay, I want to be able to buy some traffic to be able to get a little bit higher. And if that's the case for you, I would definitely advise you to look further into Google Search Console, because their AdWords platform is where you would take advantage of all of those paid components. Hopefully all that made sense, because I'm going to now pass on to my colleague Donald, who's going to take you through how you can take all those data points that I just mentioned via search and turn them into action.
All right, thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that. So we've covered a lot of information regarding, previous sessions, marketing, financials, and what I want to do now is really emphasize the importance of, as you run these campaigns, as you produce different enhancements to amplify your brand. At the same time, you want to make sure that you're tracking this information, you're measuring it, so that you're able to take the results of the activities you're doing and be able to measure that to apply it to your business, so that you can continue to refine and improve it and make it more operational. So I want to kick this conversation off on data with a couple of statistics. The first being the one we have here on the screen. So what I found this one pretty interesting. So 80% of companies report that data quality has a moderate to significant impact on the marketing campaigns and their sales efforts. And that's a pretty alarming number. And this was surveyed by a lot of both mid-sized and large companies. And what I think this statistic tells me is that there's such an importance to not only going out there and trying and experimenting with different things, whether it's improving your SEO, your SEM, or launching different advertising campaigns on social media, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're also measuring along the way, because as you test and refine and experiment with different ways in which you can amplify and market your brand, you want to make sure that you're taking the information and the results from it, so that with every new campaign, you're making it better and better, and you're taking the insights and information and applying it so that each campaign you do is more gives you more of a return and is more bang for your buck. Okay, and here another interesting one as well are that companies miss out on about 15 to 20% of an increase in return on investment if the data is not a central part of their marketing and sales decisions. And this is a key statistic for me too, because what I want to make sure, if anything that we leave from this conversation, is the importance of the information on how to market via search. But in addition to that, understanding that when you're doing these campaigns, it's best to make decisions based on data and information and things that you're seeing. So as you experiment, as you play around, you want to make sure that with every campaign you launch, you're using information and data as a way to inform your approach. And then as you continue to do that, you can continue to refine and get more effective over time. So this really will kick off what I want to focus on in really a three-phased approach. And the first phase is data. So what is that? What is the data? What is data as a phase? So what I really want to harp here is that it's important to gain insights through a large amounts of diverse data. And I think diverse is very important. So I've listed a few different data types here. You have demographic data. So, the geography, the location, the age, the gender of your customers or your followers. Engagement, how people are engaging with your website, with your brand, with your marketing campaigns. Conversion, when you're launching different initiatives and you're exposing your brand, how are you converting a potential customer to a customer? How are you getting that person from discovering you on a search and then getting them to actually buy? Acquisition, how are you acquiring customers? How are you acquiring followers? What things are you doing to increase your following? And then behavior, how are your followers or your customers behaving and engaging with your website, with your brand, with your social media? These are all key data types that are diverse and give you a full picture of really what's going on with your business. And I want to make sure that it's easy to just say, I'm going to look at my sales, and if my sales increased month over month, I'm doing well. But you could also leave a lot on the table. So as you're looking at sales, you're complementing it with these types of data points so that you're understanding as things are moving up, down, or staying flat, you can understand what other data points are potentially playing a role in the fluctuation you're seeing in your sales or your end goals. And also I want to list a few platforms. Now, it's this is not too sophisticated, and there's many of free options that are available that you can play with. So the how and how you complete this phase is really by combining the tech side with the business side and finding value in the data that you're using by leveraging that information, applying it to different platforms that allow you to do it at a broader, more efficient scale, and then not being afraid to use different open source technologies like Google Analytics, and different things of that nature, and then applying those and creating more of an alliance network so that you're combining your sales with the traffic on your website, with your information on your ad campaign to see how engagement plays a role in your sales. And a few of these platforms here that I've highlighted here are Google Analytics, and I definitely want to harp on the importance of this one. It's a free platform that you can look up right now, check it out, and you can connect it to your website, and it gives you the ability to monitor things like traffic, engagement, and then as you're doing different campaigns via search or other, you're able to kind of monitor and measure those performances. So it's a great tool, and it's free as well. So I definitely recommend that you go check that out. Also, many of you might be familiar, especially those who sell products, there's Shopify, and Shopify is another great platform that enables you to effectively have a marketplace online. It gives you the opportunity to create and sell product and also retain payment online, but on the back end, it allows you to track your sales as well. And it's a key platform that you can also connect to Google Analytics. And some more here are just getting more on the data side. So you have Microsoft Power BI, which has a free version as well. And this is another platform that allows you to easily kind of integrate different things. So if you have something going on for sales, you have something going on for advertising, you have something going on for your website, you can all connect it within under one umbrella and it allows you to kind of toggle between that information, slice and dice it, and compare it. So I definitely recommend that platform as well, and there's a free version. And then Tablio. Tablio is another great kind of more enterprise level product that does a similar thing, but in a more advanced scale. So these are definitely platforms I encourage you to check out and can definitely get you well on your way in becoming more familiar with data and using it as a tool. All right, so now we're in our second phase. So we've taken care of the fundamentals, right? We have our data in place. We've looked up these different platforms. We understand how they work. And now as we're selling, as we're marketing, as we're working on our search, we're now looking at data as we go each day to see, okay, this is working, this isn't working. So now you want to take it to that next level. So what is the phase of analytics and insights? It's discovering and driving actionable insights through the right combination of quantitative techniques and then also different technologies that can improve things from customer retention to acquisition to efficiency. So this is where you kind of build that bridge to begin telling stories. So, I could highlight a few examples of things we've done in servicing our clients. So what we've done is, we'll initially have a consultation with a client that we're either helping out or we're helping build a campaign for. And the first thing we want to do is understand their background. When you've done campaigns in the past, what has worked? What does your sales look like? What is the margins and the cost per product on your different various things that you offer? And how do you factor in shipping and things like that? And once you have the behaviors and the mechanics of a business, you can then look at and combine that data to begin to tell a story. So this is what this phase is all about. Not simply looking at your sales and saying it went up 5% or it went down 1%, but how does sales correlate to an advertising campaign? When I offer buy one, get one free, and I see my sales are flat, why is that? And then the data might tell you that geography-wise, people care more about shipping costs than they do a free accessory product that they would be willing to purchase if shipping was cheaper. So data will be able to tell you and give you examples to understand why customer behavior might be going one way or another. And that is what this phase is all about. And the how. How do you do this? Well, you apply a broad spectrum of analytically based assets. And really what that means is, do I have information on the various data types that I can use? And then how am I then creating opportunities to then allow for significant impact? Am I combining this data? Am I looking at it? Am I looking at it not from just one angle, from growth, but also year over year and things of that nature? So it's really just kind of playing around and getting to a point in which you can get it to tell you a story. So let's move on to the next phase. And now it's time for action. So you've done your homework. You set up your foundation. You have your platforms in place. You're actively looking at it. Now you're even getting into analytics and you're beginning to combine and look at your data and seeing how that might correlate to other activities you're doing. How did my sales go up when I do a pop-up? Why did this pop-up have more success than another? And it could be the timing, the customers that you marketed to. These are all things that your data can tell you. Now that you've done all of that homework, it's time to take action. It's your moment of truth, and it's your time to take a leap of faith. So it's adopting the insights that you've done and then transforming that into a process or a decision. And process is important because this whole phase should not just be an exercise that leads you to a new launch of a product, but it should be something that's in your core DNA of your business. Every decision you make should be data informed to an extent. It's not going to be a perfect science. Not everything you're going to do, there will be data and information for, but it's important that you have a behavior and a DNA in that when you want to launch a product, you first look at the successes of your prior ones. So you might notice that there might be a cyclical nature to the products and how popular they are to certain regions. So again, going back to some client examples of ours, we had a customer who did a holiday campaign and fell flat most years. And so when we came on board, we looked at a lot of their products to kind of test what was going on. And one of the quickest things we saw is as we built out decisions on what promotions they should run, we noticed that a lot of their customers geographically came from areas where there were products that were simply more popular. So in Texas, for example, one brand of a candle sold really well. So we tended to kind of bifurcate and break up the campaigns. We targeted a certain campaign to the popularity of a product in that state. So we weren't applying a broad a broad campaign everywhere, but we kind of more segmented it to regions where we knew sales were better. That way we can help our clients spend less money to get a better return on sales. So that's just an example of using data as a DNA in your business to save you money and making more of the cost that you put out for marketing, getting more in return for it. So that's kind of something that I really want you to take away from this conversation. And the way you do that is by deploying new programs, using your tools, using your processes, and turning those insights into actions by combining the data, getting it to a proven state, and then taking that leap of faith to try it out. And the only way you'll know is by making sure that you're continuing to measure it within every step. So let's transition to the next slide. So kind of in summary, we've kind of walked through really those three core phases: data, analytics, insights, and actions. So data, building your foundation, getting your platforms, trying to build a foundation for sustainable growth. Your analytics, where you try to identify those stories, figure out what's going on. And then lastly, taking action and launching both an impactful but measurable initiative that could help transform your business.
So we are right around time. Thank you, everyone, for staying through with us. Just want to wrap it up by saying thank you for all of you for joining, but also thank you to our partners, the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce. We've been in close collaboration with them throughout this whole process, and they've been fantastic, not only to us, but the greater Harlem community at large. And that's it. Again, I'm Matthew. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be rolling out another webinar soon, so be on the lookout for that. If you don't already, please follow us on Instagram at t10collective.com. If you're interested in working with us, feel free to drop us a line. We have our email there. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again. Have a great one.